website attacking
That's
me.
fair enough.
So
Fair enough.
I will just say one thing, that I learned in high school debate, that when you have no argument, you simply change the subject.
All right. On October 15th of 2020, you said Lindsey Graham is soliciting cash payments in return for voting on a Supreme Court nomination. What evidence, that's a pretty bold statement, Professor. What evidence do you have for alleging that Senator Graham was taking cash in return for one of his votes?
I don't recall that specific tweet,
Here it
but
is,
I
right
do.
here.
There's some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's the Supreme Court. That's the line Professor Richard Painter blasted out on X, accusing the highest court in the land of being bought. But when Senator John Kennedy looked him dead in the eye and asked one simple question, which justices? The story started to fall apart fast. Folks, grab a seat, get comfortable, make sure you like and subscribe, and let's dive right back into it.
Kennedy is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks.
Senator Kaine.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses here today. Professor Painter, on May 5th of this year, you put out a tweet. You said, I'm going to quote, "There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's the Supreme Court." Would you tell me which members of the Supreme Court you believe are bought?
I was particularly concerned at that point when I posted that tweet
I
about
understand, but if you could, I've got really limited time, and I apologize for interrupting. Just tell me which members of the court you are bought.
I did not think that Justice Clarence Thomas should be failing to disclose his trips on a billionaire's
Do you think
yacht
he's
and an
bought?
airplane.
Do you think he's
I
bought?
believe that there is grave risk.
Do you think
that
he's bought?
I said there is grave risk
Do you think he's bought?
to the confidence of the American people in our Supreme
Well, if you
Court.
don't think he's bought, why did you say it?
I said
Yes,
that
you
there
said,
is-
you said members of the Supreme Court are bought. You're here testifying as an expert for my Democratic friends, and you're saying the members of the Supreme Court are bought?
I said when the American people feel that way, when we have Supreme Court justices
feel that way?
on yachts and in planes of billionaires and not being disclosed.
Anybody
financial
besides Justice Thomas you think is bought on the Supreme Court?
I believe that the court needs to clean
Anybody
up
besides
its act.
Justice Thomas?
I'm not going to go through each
I mean, you
justice.
tweeted it.
I tweeted the way the American people
Did
feel.
you mean
the way
it when
I
you
feel.
tweeted it?
And I stand by that tweet. This Supreme Court of the United States
right.
needs to clean up its
Let me
act.
ask you a couple others here, because you've on September 17, 2020, you tweeted, "It looks like Putin's favorite senator could lose," referring to Senator Lindsey Graham. Could you tell me your evidence for saying that Senator Graham is President Putin's favorite senator?
I don't recall that tweet and the story.
Well, I've got
that
it.
was
It's
tweeted
right
out.
here. It's right here.
I'm happy to look at the tweet, and I'm happy to write you, explain that. I don't know what that has to do with climate change. the
Well,
subject of
it
this
has to
hearing.
do with your credibility. Did
As
you
a-
say, what is your basis for saying that Senator Graham is President Putin's? I mean, have you ever talked to President Putin?
I have not talked to President Putin, and I would be happy to go look at the tweet and look at the story that I tweeted out and what Senator Graham had said in that context. You know, this is something
you say all this stuff. For example, you're here as an expert for my Democratic friends, and you say all this stuff. You called on September 16, 2023, a professor at the University of Chicago, very distinguished professor, Brian Leiter. You called him a racist. Can you explain to me why you think he's a racist?
I remember a series of tweets with him. He's a Marxist who put out a number of statements attacking African Americans and women, And he also was raising money for someone who had called the police on a black student for sleeping in the common room, and now has a wokekkk.com website attacking
That's
me.
fair enough.
So
Fair
I
enough.
will just say one thing, that I learned in high school debate, that when you have no argument, you simply change the subject.
All right. On October 15th of 2020, you said Lindsey Graham is soliciting cash payments in return for voting on a Supreme Court nomination. What evidence, that's a pretty bold statement, Professor. What evidence do you have for alleging that Senator Graham was taking cash in return for one of his votes?
I don't recall that specific tweet,
Here it
but
is,
I
right here.
do.
Here
I
it is.
do recall. And I
Do you think he was taking cash for one of his votes?
I have received campaign.
Do you think he was taking cash for one of his votes?
I'm answering your question, Senator. I have received solicitations from both political parties.
Do you think Lindsey Graham was taking cash for
one?
one of his votes? It's a simple question,
I have
Professor.
received cash, solicitations for cash on my email. And yes, from both political parties in connection with Supreme Court confirmation votes.
Well, I'm out of
It's
time,
wrong.
but let me just say for the record,
It's wrong.
my aunt's Facebook page has more credibility than you do. I could spend the rest of the day reading your quotes where you make allegations against people and you can't defend them.
You've said nothing about climate change. You quoted everybody from a Marxist
Senator
to
Kaine.
all sorts of other people. This has absolutely nothing to do with the topic of the hearing, Senator.
Senator Kaine.
This moment didn't start with shouting. It started with a receipt. Senator Kennedy calmly pulled up Professor Painter's own tweet, the one claiming members of the Supreme Court were bought. No spin, no paraphrasing, just his words. Kennedy asked the most basic question imaginable. Which justices are you accusing? Painter immediately tried to dance. He pivoted to grave risk, public confidence, and vague concerns, anything except answering the question. Kennedy wasn't having it. He zeroed in on Justice Clarence Thomas and demanded clarity. Was Justice Thomas bought? Yes or no? Painter refused to say it. He hedged. He backtracked. He wrapped himself in buzzwords about ethics and appearances, but never backed up his accusation with facts. That's when Kennedy went for credibility. He started reading Painter's past statements, tweets accusing Senator Lindsey Graham of being Putin's favorite senator, another tweet suggesting Graham was taking cash in exchange for Supreme Court votes. Serious allegations. Kennedy asked again, "What evidence do you have?" Painter couldn't remember the tweets, couldn't explain the claims, couldn't support them. On one accusation after another, the pattern was the same: big charges, zero proof. Then came the knockout. Kennedy reminded everyone why Painter was there, a climate hearing. And yet, after all the accusations, all the political shots, all the Twitter drama, Painter hadn't said a single meaningful word about climate change. That's when Kennedy delivered the line that sealed it. He said Painter's credibility was so weak, his aunt's Facebook page had more credibility. Not a raised voice, not a rant, just facts, receipts, and relentless questions, exposing what happens when rhetoric replaces evidence. This wasn't about left versus right. It was about accountability. If you're going to accuse Supreme Court justices and U.S. senators of corruption, you better be ready to prove it. And when the moment came, the so-called expert had nothing. If this exchange tells us anything, it's this: accusations are easy, evidence is hard. And Senator Kennedy just reminded Washington that facts still matter. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, subscribe to the channel, share this with friends who care about what really happens in these hearings. And as always, see you in the next one.